13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
All right, welcome back to 13 Questions. How's it going, Mr. Bill?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to jumping into this evening's intro, or, day, depending on where you are in the world at the moment.
Indeed. This episode, we have Brandon Marlowe. He's from I found him via the Grammarica Discord chat. So like me, he's a member of that community. And so that's how I got in contact with him. He also does his own podcast. So, of course, it's also nice to interview somebody that has experience. So that made it nice and easy. And him and I got along very well during the interview. So well, in fact, that I told a few people that it was like talking to myself because of just the various topics that he brought up, and his thoughts kind of are already in line with how I'm thinking about things. So it was a fun, interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good one for you to take charge on.
Yeah, that was the first one I got to do solo, so that was an experience. It was my, I don't know what you want to call that, solo podcast cherry or whatever. So I hope you guys take a little bit, have some mercy on me.
Yep, you're broken in.
Yeah.
That pair of sneakers has been worn to that perfect point where you start to get the cushion instead of the pain.
Yeah, so it was a good experience, fun time. So I found him through the Discord chat, and we're trying to get our own community started with 13 Questions podcast. Grammarica's community is pretty well established. I hang out in there all the time. The chat server for us for this show does have a link to the Grammarica show in the rules channel I just recently put there. I figured out how to make the invitation for Discord not expire, because I did have a few links in that channel, but they ended up not working for too long because they expired. So I actually had to ask Ryan from Kansas to figure out
good old Ryan.
how to he's a good guy. He helps out a lot with Discord. So I'm learning a few things from him. One of the things I learned was how to set that invitation to be good in perpetuity. So that was nice of him to do. So yeah, that's just a tiny example of the cooperation and friendliness that goes into being a part of the Discord community. So if you are listening to this podcast right now and you want to join, I did set up a link on our website, 13questionspodcast.com. If you go to the podcast episodes tab, there should be a link right above where all the episodes are displayed there for you to click on, and it'll direct you to Discord. You will have to create an account to log in, but it should put you right into our lounge channel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great place. If you haven't checked it out, I highly encourage it. Yeah, so if you're a guy like me and you've got plenty of time to kill, it's a good place to go hang out.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And if you are looking to do your own 13 questions, or if you know somebody who you'd like to have on 13 questions, it's the perfect way to reach out to us. Fully open, just, do an @us. Our tags, I'm a pink atom, not a pink atom, but a highlighted pink atom in the Discord chats. You can catch Bill over there as B-Strut, and get at us. Help you with anything technical. Love to hear any suggestions you have, people that you would like to hear. We do have a list and it's growing. And if you have suggestions or questions that you would like for the show, submit them. This thing is not set in stone, willing to grow as we feel it needs to. Certainly going to keep it a very pruned growth, but I like to see where this thing goes and not keep it in a box.
Yeah, it would be nice to get like a rotating sequence of questions we could ask that are different, still interesting but different for each, just to keep the show a little bit you know, I don't want to say more interesting, but like keep us on our toes a little bit more, keep things exciting. But yeah, content suggestions. I mean, this is an open source project. Neither Adam nor I really claim ownership over the podcast. If anybody can do that, it's Darren Grimes from Gramerica. So we are just kind of stewards here to kind of shepherd this project along. And a big part of that is it being open source. So if you guys have any role models or grandparents or parents that you look up to and you would like to sit down and ask these questions to, we encourage you to do that and to record that and send it over to us so we can then in turn share it with the rest of the listening audience. And I think it would be a good feeling for that person sharing the recording to know that their role model or their grandparent has also been memorialized in the wisdom that they have passed on to to us, to them, of course, but to us as a listening audience. So it's a great way to ensure that their name has kind of been inscribed in I don't know, the annals of 13 questions, if that ever is going to be a thing in this world.
Completely agree. Everybody's got a different facet of the giant picture, and we need you to expand it. So yeah, glad that you guys are here. Glad you are part of it. Glad you are supporting the show, joining us in the chats. It's always good to hear from you. When you head on over to the website, if you would like to help support us in any way, it does take a little bit of change to keep this thing hosted and going, website cost, Libsyn accounts, and we do appreciate the support that you guys give us. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Yes, this is a value for value project. So we don't have any sponsors. There's no paywall. It is. When we're recording this, it is still election voting season, and one of the best ways to vote is with your dollars. So if you find a cause that you want to support and you believe in it, people generally try to support that through spending their money at whatever your favorite restaurant or your favorite big box store or whatever, if you have one of those. So I guess another way of showing your support for us would be to contribute. It doesn't have to be monthly or on a regular basis, a one-time donation, just whatever you feel like is worth it to you to help us continue this work.
Within your means and worth it. If within your means is recording your grandpa, we don't need a $5, monthly subscription. We have you, we have you being here. We have you in the chats. We have you contributing. It's a place for growth. I think it's going to be a great place for people to connect. Once you get your mind kind of diving into these deep levels of questioning the world we live in and how we move through it and how we view it, and these questions really start to dig into those crevices, it just opens up so much more honest conversation. And, we're here to help each other grow, help each other get further in life. And anybody that's willing to open their mind to deeper concepts and is in a growing phase and is looking to make themselves a better person, I think that we can all get together and make ourselves, a better organism, if you will, feed off of each other and fuel each other's fires.
And it's so much easier to do that when you're a part of a community, in the Discord kind of mediates, makes that more possible. But that is something that I don't know. I'm a little heated this morning. I just came out of a virtual conference, and it was just kind of disheartening to see that the people running this were not really open to ideas that were outside of their paradigm. So. And it just made me so thankful to be a part of the Gramerica Discord chat and, of course, our Discord chat, because I feel like the people that gravitate towards places like that are open to discussing opposing viewpoints without being hostile. And it just made me realize how rare that is to find.
We've had a couple of guests say I can't believe you would have me on. And it's like, why wouldn't I? There's very few people that I would be completely opposed to having on. And it wouldn't be because of an ideological, point of view. It would be from a standpoint of, I don't think I can change your mind, or I don't want to go into a combative situation. I want to have an open discussion about whatever the topic is. Broken clocks are right twice a day, and everybody has to honor that. And I have to understand that something I say may resonate with the other person. And if it does, I'm not there to take congratulations. I'm there to congratulate the process of being able to exchange ideas and still have our own conclusions at the end. And I'll have a discussion with anybody that is willing to meet me in that arena. And that's why I say, anybody that answers these questions, I want you to just answer the questions honestly. Treat the questions with honesty, and nothing can go wrong. We're on a good footing.
Yeah, so just being grateful for that. And I was thinking about this earlier this morning, kind of sitting there brooding to myself, and just getting prepared for these intros. So yeah, that's just my gratitude for I don't know, we didn't really roll into the segment very smoothly. We still don't have a jingle. Kind of still working on that. Kind of waiting for the right person to hear this and volunteer to pitch in. But yeah, that's just something that I realized I was grateful for. Again, was just being part of a community that is open-minded and can have civil conversations without accusing other people of being just this inherently evil person. So that's what I'm grateful for.
That's beautiful, dude. I almost want to just jump on the bandwagon and drop my, I'm feeling so pulled in. But what I was going to say is technology, the ability to do what we're doing. And I've been doing some editing on the side for like a fiction project. And just having the simple technology of my Roku having an audio out, and my personal handheld recorder having an audio in with a headphone out to listen live. And I can go 2 seconds back with a recording before I hit the button and still pull it in. I can sit down and watch a documentary, watch a TV show, pull out clips and sound effects super quick, super easily, go to my computer, drop it in. And if I want to be super snazzy, I have a notepad, and for each clip number, I write a little description. And to me, that takes out so much work and encompasses all these simple technologies. And, I'm gonna jump onto another leg of this. I am grateful for old technology, specifically the 3.5 millimeter audio jack, because even my phone, which is a mil-spec phone, has this 3.5 audio jack. So all of my equipment, I have an alarm clock radio I bought for remote viewing from the 1970s for its radio static capabilities, has a 3.5 millimeter audio jack plugged into my 5-year-old recorder, linked into my mixer. To me, that is a beautiful thing. My computer has the audio out, right? I've got like one USB port, but I've still got a 3.5. All of these things interlink, and I can use, oh my God, I have my Nintendo hooked up to this thing. Like it's a beautiful thing. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, and the 3.5, that's just the standard
Audio jack
plug that you use for headphones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's my favorite piece of tech. Like if I could go throughout history and meet everybody, I want to meet I want to know the whole story, all the nuances of how that, because it's influenced. Okay, it's weird. It's influenced my life hugely, and I'm very grateful for technology and the 3.5 millimeter audio jack.
Yeah, it's weird that you mentioned that, because I was looking for headphones for sleep headphones, because I want to have a specific pair that allows you to like stay in bed comfortably and fall asleep to listen to these the Monroe Institute audio
Mhm.
recordings for the binaural beats, and you can't really do that with a normal set of headphones. But I didn't want anything that was wireless because I just don't feel comfortable with beaming, Bluetooth radiation into my head when I'm sleeping. So I would prefer something wired. So yeah, it's just funny that you mentioned that because I was looking at that earlier
Well,
today.
I can suggest to you the headphones I'm wearing are very comfortable. They're a bit snug. I like them for binaural beats.
Yeah, the ones I was looking at is kind of like just like earmuffs, like or a headband earmuffs, and the speakers are super thin, so they slip right in between.
The
The
biggest
little
thing is going to
pouch.
be frequency response, which is huge for binaural beats. I know Justin and I, when we were doing a podcast with him, he's like, yeah, it's not really doing anything for me. I'm like, okay, which headphones are you using? Because I've tried it with earbuds and some of my lower quality headphones, and they don't have the frequency response, meaning, these things are running a very, like, whatever hertz it's going to be running at, a very low hertz and then another hertz. If you can't hear that specific frequency, you're not going to get the interference wave, the hallucinatory wave that you get in the center feeling of your head. So you really do need to have something with wide spectrum. I like monitor headphones for a lot of that. They tend not to be bassy. It's what you use for studios to listen to stuff. They have very large diaphragms, so they tend to have a much higher and a lower frequency response. But obviously, I'd be looking at ohm responses for that.
Oh, that's a bunch of information I didn't know was out there. So thank you for enlightening me. I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper on my headphone situation. And
So now that we've dived into the technical weeds, you want to get back into tonight's episode?
Yeah, guys, enjoy it. I don't know what else to say there.
All right. Enjoy the show.
All right, then. We'll get right into it. Question 1. What was the best advice ever given to you? Would you modify it at all today?
Well, I think the quote is, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been, from Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And I know this may be cheating a bit, but I've been thinking about that question a lot. And what's kept me coming back to that is just it's just the best advice I'd ever been given. And even though it's from a book, Meditations, and not a person telling it to me directly, but I mean that's how I've learned most things in my life. I've always been a really big reader. I was raised as an only child, and I was just incredibly shy when I was young, which led me to reading a ton of books. But I think that advice is so important because it speaks to our ability to create our own reality and, in a sense, forge the personality that we'd like to have. I mean, we all have the ability to react how we'd like to react, and it gives us our power back to know that we're the ones responsible for our own feelings, right? Of course, I think this ties in with things like meditation or whatever you want to call kind of observing your own thoughts and feelings. But by understanding that I am not my feelings, but the observer of them, and by simply training myself to observe my thoughts and feelings, I believe it allows me to choose my reaction to things my reaction to things. And I think that the trickle down is immense. I mean, it allows me to consider events that other people consider bad or unfortunate as challenges to be overcome. It allows me to see the things that annoy me in other people as a reflection of the things that annoy me about myself. And it allows me the opportunity to work on myself further. So I think that the knowledge that we have, the knowledge that we have the ability to choose our reaction to things is just incredibly valuable and really allows almost infinite growth through reflection. And no, I wouldn't modify it at all.
Yeah, I think advice like that really doesn't need modifying. I love that answer because I am a fan of Marcus Aurelius too. And even though, you took it from a book and nobody said it to you, but books are really it really is like having a conversation with somebody in the past. And
yeah.
The books are around for a reason because, I mean, in my mind, like if you don't read them and have these conversations with these, important figures from our past, it's like what's the point of being able to read it all? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. And just the thing that I think is so needed about Marcus Aurelius' Meditations in particular is that it was just his own journal, right? It was his own kind of internal reflection that was never meant to be published, but it's such an amazing view into someone's mindset that accomplished so much, and to have them have these really humble viewings on things, it's really inspiring.
Yeah, and the other fun fact is that it was a journal. It wasn't meant for publication, but
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
it's just so cool that it's a journal that was passed down, and we're like, I mean, such a huge influence in Stoicism to be able to glean that from someone's personal daily life. Like, it's I don't know, I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, question number 2: what was the most important lesson you learned from your parents?
I think it's to think for myself and just to never go with the crowd unless I felt that it was right personally. My mom hates when I talk about this, but when I was growing up, I was really curious. I mean, I still am, but I would always be asking her what something meant or how this thing related to another. And she would always tell me to look it up. And whether it was in a dictionary or an encyclopedia, which kind of dates me, I know. But I would always have to go and spend time searching for it and then try to synthesize the information into some kind of coherent whole. And, as a kid, sometimes I found that pretty annoying. Like, I just wanted her to tell me what something meant quickly. I remember thinking at the time, like, why won't you just tell me what this word means? Like, I know you know. It'd be so much faster if you just told me and I could get on with this book that I'm reading or whatever it was. But now I really see the value in it. I mean, being forced to look things up and to learn to search on my own really fostered an ability to not only learn on my own, but also to see how each piece of information fits in with a whole or doesn't, and sets me up for a lifetime of searching for my own information instead of looking to an authority figure for the answer, which I think is just incredibly important. And that's a lesson that I've carried forward all through my life and all facets of my being, really. I mean, I've searched for my own answers on all things and always looked for the source and made up my own mind from there. It's really helped me forge my own path as an individual, and make me feel like I've got reasons, thought and purpose behind my value structure, and I haven't just inherited them kind of through osmosis through different leaders and parents figures and that kind of stuff. So, I guess another way I could put it is that she taught me to let my curiosity guide me and to be undeterred in my quest for understanding.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think being forced to seek out the information itself, part of the journey, not the destination type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And having that moving forward, I'm sure helped you to kind of seek out as many sources of information about one particular subject as possible, so you can kind of get a better perspective about whatever you're researching from all these different angles, right?
Yeah, exactly. And just to not necessarily trust, I mean, you could put it in an immediate perspective of not trusting the news or the government just because they're considered to be the authority figures, purveying certain information, but to kind of look deeper at the source that they're using for that information, right? I think that has a lot of benefit, especially in today's era.
Yeah, appeal to authority is one of the logical fallacies that people can fall into. So I think it's awesome. That's awesome. Question number 3. What book has been the most influential on your life and why?
So this is probably going to be a bit of a long one, but the Seth material for me, specifically Seth Speaks and The Nature of Personal Reality, finding those books caused just a cascade of paradigm shifts for me. Just as a bit of background, I was in my early 20s, and I'd spent a few years at that point kind of searching for the meaning of life. I mean, for me, right? And I'd struggled with some anxiety and depression from childhood, kind of all through my teenage years, and really just felt, honestly, just this consistent existential crisis. I just wanted to understand it. And so I went to university for psychology for a while with the hopes of kind of understanding it, and that didn't really help. And I took courses in neurolinguistic programming, and that didn't seem to help. I'd seen a psychotherapist who was a family friend that my mom had sent me to during my high school years because I was just skipping a ton of school. And when I was there, I wasn't handing in my work, and seeing him didn't seem to help. We formed a good bond, but I didn't really improve in my academic commitments, let's say. And my teachers and family were concerned because they thought that I was smart, but they didn't really know what was going on. And I guess I should say that I've just always been really reserved with my own feelings on things. I remember being anxious about people knowing what I was thinking. It sounds kind of silly, but I just felt like if they saw my eyes, they'd know what was on my mind. And I just felt like I had to keep a generally pretty stoic demeanor because of that. And, I think that's changed since I've had kids, but, it's a whole different thing. But so this whole journey to understand myself and the meaning of my life continued. And like it always seems to, for me anyway, it continued through books and reading. And I remember having this mini spiritual awakening through reading Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. which I thought at the time was just mind blowing for me. I mean, it contains some exercises and mindfulness that seemed to really help with anxiety and depression, but more than anything, it sparked a desire to understand the spiritual realm. And, off I went trying to find the best answers I could in that domain. And just eventually I came across some channeled works like the Law of One. And at first I thought it was really hokey. I mean, like, how could a personality be channeled through a person? Surely they had to be charlatans or hucksters just trying to sell their books. But, as I looked further into it and into channeled works, I came across the Seth material, and those books honestly changed my life forever. I mean, just a tiny background on the books. The personality of Seth was channeled through Jane Roberts and recorded by her husband, Robert Butts, from 1963 until she died in 1984. They had weekly sessions for the most part. They had held classes with students and all that kind of stuff, but they had these weekly sessions where Jane would channel Seth, and Seth would dictate these books to her husband, Robert Butts, who'd write them all down by hand. But Jane had started writing the book called How to Develop Your ESP Power. And it was meant to be an investigation into all things related to extrasensory perception. And it was something that she was approaching really skeptically. Like, she had a background that she wasn't at all inclined towards these sorts of things. I think she just kind of felt an urge to write a book on this kind of in a nonfiction perspective one day. And when it came to try the Ouija board, they ended up communicating with what they would consider a fairly ordinary, mundane personality, but through repeated contact, that eventually led her to automatic writing and eventually channeling a voice and full personality of the entity that called itself Seth. And I mean, like, all this was covered in the first book, the Seth material. That's a collection of Seth's words and Jane's story kind of woven together that takes the reader on a journey from her being skeptical to being more open to it. And then Seth went on to write his own book through Jane, starting with Seth Speaks and followed by The Nature of Personal Reality. It's wild once you get into it. It's just, there's no editing, and it appears as though Seth would compose his books in whatever dimension he exists in and then dictate them to Robert through Jane in their weekly sessions, but it would just be verbatim one session to the next. Every now and again, there'd be an occasional little word or phrase or something that they might alter, but I mean, in a book, maybe there's 3 or 4 occasions of that. Other than that, they're perfectly written. So I guess I'll just go quickly through the biggest lessons I pulled out of those books, although I find myself going back to them often and pulling out new things. I mean, one funny thing I've noticed is that I'll look at the sections I've highlighted for my first or second time through, and I think of that information as fairly mundane in my worldview now, but I'll find all sorts of new gems and passages that had previously left untouched. So I've just got a couple of takeaways I'll share. These are things I could talk about endlessly, so I've picked just a few of the main ones here. My consciousness, my personality exists outside of the body, and my personality will exist beyond death. I think that was absolutely a paradigm shifting for me anyway. I create my reality. I mean, I think that we all do, but it's something that it just kind of gives us our power back, right? Like, through our own thoughts and beliefs and expectations, we really create the experience that we encounter. My point of power is the present. So with all time being simultaneous, we experience time in a linear fashion in this dimension, but outside of this plane, everything is simultaneous. And the feeling we have of linearity here seems to be a bit of an illusion. And I think that's demonstrated if you've ever gotten into lucid dreaming or anything like that. You kind of feel the more, I would say, true nature of our existence. I feel like this is kind of the illusion. But and another lesson being that I get what I focus on. We all get what we focus on, right? Whatever your kind of point of attention is seems to be the thing that you draw into yourself. My beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and expectations are what create my experience. And through working to understand and change my beliefs, I can change my experience and change my reality. We've all lived multiple lives through multiple eras, and we're still always connected. Like I just said, that time is simultaneous, and if you're open to it, which I think is true with everything, if you're open to it, you can draw on the experience and knowledge of those individuals, not only in the past, but in the future as well. I mean, that's just a small sampling. Honestly, if anybody's open to those things, I think these books kind of find you when you're ready. But if anybody feels like they're looking into those kinds of things, I can't recommend the Seth books highly enough. But why were they influential on me? I mean, they completely shifted my paradigm from this materialist worldview to a much more spiritual one. Completely eliminated my fear of death and gave me a sense of power and control over my life that I've really never relinquished. And I think it just fully washed away any anxiety and depression that I'd been dealing with. It gave me a kind of renewed vision and purpose, and kind of removed the kind of hedonistic nihilism that I think we're kind of have built into us in the West.
Yeah, those channeling books have always been really interesting to me. I was, when I first approached them, I was a little bit skeptical.
Hmm.
I don't know too much about Seth work specifically, but I know that I've read the Law of One, and
Yeah.
I think the entity that they channeled for that was Ra,
Hmm.
and that also, and I it's a different entity now, but I think that same group of people are still doing some type of channeling with another entity called Quo today, QUO. So yeah, those books. I mean, I have found them helpful. So it's really cool that you brought that up there. Um, and then there's another one that kind of reminds me. It's along the same lines, but I don't think this guy channels anybody. But his name's Walter Russell, and he wrote the Universal One. And you had mentioned that the Seth books didn't have any, editing or, you know, going back and revising this or that. It was kind of
Hmm.
just, bam, dictated, wrote down, and that's what was published. And the Universal One by Walter Russell is kind of the same concept. He didn't, he wrote the book. There's been no other additions or revisions made, and I think it was banned eventually, and then it's just now like being able to be printed again or something. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I love the Seth and the raw material. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
So I encourage anybody, if you're curious about it, go check it out. I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, there's just one quick other thing, I guess, on the Seth stuff. I don't know about the other one that you were just mentioning. I'd like to check it out. But the thing I've always really enjoyed about the Seth material is that it feels like he's not trying to sell you on anything. Basically, he says you could learn everything I'm telling you by observing nature. But since you're not currently observing nature in that way, like here, I'll try and give you a hand, basically. But there's no like, hey, buy my course or spend $6.99 every 6 months or whatever to try and stay in this group. It's just like buy the book, read it, practice the exercises that are listed within, and then see if you can go inward enough to kind of find good benefit.
Yeah, I think it's always a good sign when where you're sourcing your information, and it's not like they're asking you to, they're the only one that can come fix your problem, so you have to pay them
Right.
$200 for all
Yeah.
that. So, right on. All right. Question 4: what daily habits or rituals do you have?
So there are a lot of habits and rituals that I cycle through. I feel like a lot of things come in waves for me. Whether it's reading to my kids before bed, having a meditation practice, or practicing the 5 Tibetan rites, exercising, journaling. All of those things come in waves, and I think a big part of that is because I work shift work for my day job, so I'm working some days and some nights, and it's kind of a bit all over the place. So it can be hard to have any real set rituals. But one thing that I do every single day without fail is tell my kids I love them, and I know that might sound mundane, but that's a really important part of my life. And the other one is that I observe and reflect on my thoughts and behaviors from that day. And without fail, I'm doing this probably more often than I should, really. But I'm spending a lot of time kind of obsessing over what's happening in my head and observing the reactions to things, and how that makes me feel, and how seeing somebody behave in a certain way, if that made me feel contempt or something like that, try and follow that back to see what the source of that is in myself, and if I do that thing. And I find that there's a lot of benefit to be gained from reflecting on yourself. And so, like I just touched on in the last answer, I believe that my beliefs are what set the course for my experience. And so by observing my thoughts and behaviors, I think it really helps me understand my beliefs better. And therefore, it gives me just a little more control over the course of my life. So really, it's all about trying to grow in the right direction, but doing that through looking inward and not really looking at other people as any other source than kind of a reflection of myself. So, but yeah, I think the key to that is having the ability to be honest with yourself, right? Like in order to reflect on yourself properly, you can't be mired in grandiose visions of yourself. You have to be able to approach the observation in a kind of a clinical fashion, and learn to follow the feelings back to their root without judgment. Like you can't think that everything is coming from somebody else, like it's their fault, this, that, or the other thing happened. I think there's just a kind of a sense of honesty and accountability that has to be built in there.
Yeah, I think trying to observe your thoughts as like a third party almost is
Hmm.
really challenging, especially when you first start out doing it. So, and it is like something, if you're going to do it, doing it daily is kind of required, because there's no point in time when our emotions aren't coming in to, we're not feeling any emotions other than when we're asleep. So, and yeah, I think that's great that, that's something that you try to do. I think, if people worried more about what's going on inside their own heads instead of what other people think, we'd all, we might be in a better spot,
Right.
Oh, I was going to ask, what are the 5 Tibetan rites? What is that?
Oh, so I can't remember the guy's name now. I wish I had the book in front of me. But the basic story is this guy went over to Tibet, I guess, and trained with these monks when he was kind of an older gentleman. I want to say he was in his 70s, and he kind of learned this practice that they do every morning. And so it's really easy you can Google it and see the exercises or watch it on YouTube. But basically, you're doing these 5 kind of almost yoga exercises, right? It's like movement and stretching through meditation. So you're breathing one full breath for each kind of rep. You do each rite 21 times, which you kind of work up to, right? I would start at like 7 for each one, and then go up 1 a day or something like that. But once you get to doing all 21, it's I don't know, like the I don't know how you'd call it, the woo behind it or whatever people want to judge about it. But basically, it's meant to kind of open each of your chakras and kind of get you more aligned and present for your day. And I find something incredibly valuable to it. Like if I could make sure that I do it every morning, I find that I always have a better day than if I didn't. And it just seems to kind of align me and my goals. And at the end of that, usually I'll do kind of a short meditation and kind of visualization for the things I'd like to kind of bring about for my day. And I find that it really centers me and keeps me it keeps me on the right track. But yeah, if anybody's curious about checking them out, they're really easy to find on YouTube and stuff. And I'd highly recommend trying it.
Yeah, that's neat. I'm definitely going to check that out. All right. Question number 5. If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most, and why?
So I actually asked my wife about this because I thought that answering for her would probably be more of a reflection on what I thought I needed to work on than what she thought. But maybe that's the point of the question. So apologies if I'm answering the question I want instead of the one that's being asked. But my wife said slowing down and having more empathy and patience. Carrying people's feelings more gently over to my point of view, and being less dominant and stubborn when having difficult conversations. And I could definitely see that. I mean, I spend a lot of time in my head coming to certain conclusions, and then I think I could probably be a little bit too quick about hoping other people will come to the same conclusions with the same evidence. And in reflecting on this since I asked her, I realized that I probably can expect people to come to the same conclusions that I did faster than I did, really. It's because when you think back on how you got to somewhere, you don't really put into consideration how long it took you to kind of make that mental leap, right? So especially with my wife, who I love, because I feel like she has no problem keeping up with me on any of these topics when we're talking about anything. So I think I can be a bit hard on her when I feel like she's not necessarily seeing it in the way that I'm trying to present it.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, when you're having these discussions with people, don't try to red pill them right away.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a better way to put it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was just me and my girlfriend were just talking about that the other day. How you can't tell people things, the truth if they're not ready to hear it. No matter
exactly.
how much evidence or whatever you put in front of them. So.
Yeah, and it can be, I end up going down the rabbit hole on these things. So whatever the topic happens to be, it's like I'll spend far too long days or weeks researching a certain topic. And then when I feel like I've gotten to a place where I've got a conclusion, I've still got all that information in my head. So it's like, going rapid fire with 14 points to try and prove why a thing is a certain way without giving anybody the time to digest, I think is it's probably not beneficial for everybody and kind of makes me look a bit raving mad, I think.
Maybe a little bit. Question number 6. What are you most curious about?
That's something that's always changing for me, but I think right now I'm the most curious about out-of-body experiences, astral projection, and lucid dreaming. I believe we all have those abilities, but we don't remember the experiences because of a set of beliefs and root assumptions that we're all burdened with. I mean, in the West, especially burdened with beliefs like consciousness being a product of the brain, but how? Don't worry about that part. We don't know, but we're sure it's from the brain, right? That's what science says. So, I mean, there's a phenomenal book by a guy named Rick Stack called Out of Body Adventures that works you through the belief work and exercises necessary to go out of body. And that's something that I've taken up again now. I came across it in my first pass through the Seth material about 10 years ago. But I found it fascinating, but I was much more concerned with the kind of more practical applications of day-to-day living. And now that I've circled back around on it, it's something I'm really intentionally trying to learn and experience. So, it's one of the benefits of doing the podcast that I'm doing. It allows me to follow my curiosity and kind of speak to people who are experts in those different fields. It's, selfish in a way, but I think it benefits the whole eventually. And it gives me a chance to read different books and synthesize the information into a research piece that I feel like is of value to other people eventually. But usually my curiosity around topics will wane. And once I've gotten to a certain point of understanding, not necessarily to the bottom of it, but when I feel like I've gotten enough to synthesize it into the whole. But in this case, I believe that this is really just the start of a long journey that's going to take me into the next era of my life, I imagine.
Yeah. Have you looked at any of Robert Monroe's work for outer body?
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. I've got his book right here, Journeys
Okay.
Out of the Body. Yeah,
Right.
coming across the Seth material, one of the a lot of people actually came through their life when she was doing all this stuff, and Robert Monroe was one of those people. So I first heard about him through the Seth material when he was just having his awakening. And then, he's obviously gone off to do some amazing stuff with the different binaural beats and different programs that he has there. There's actually a Monroe Institute on Vancouver Island that I'm going to take a look at once this COVID stuff clears up, because I don't think they're doing anything like that right now. But I think it's definitely worth a look into. Yeah, if anybody's interested in that stuff, Robert Monroe. Even the CIA didn't really necessarily infiltrate him, but they sent somebody to see what the project was all about, and you can read all those documents. Right, it's pretty wild to see kind of the experiences they've had.
Yeah, it is. Question number 7. What was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
Yeah, this week or no. I tried stand-up comedy a few years ago. Now, I was a shy kid growing up, but I went to a school for the performing arts. So from grade 1 to 12, I did drama, dance. Or pardon me, from grade 1 to 7, it was drama, dance, music, and art. And then from basically 8 to 12, it was drama or theater. If it wasn't for that school, I can't imagine how shy I would still be now. It really kind of forces you to get out of your shell. I feel comfortable performing on stage now. I've always done well with comedies, so I thought I would just be fine doing stand-up. And so I ended up being the first to go at this open mic night. I had some friends come with me. I got one to record it with my phone because I wanted to be able to analyze the performance in order to get better. And, I wasn't really even particularly nervous about going up, which in hindsight is probably a bad thing when you think about it. But I had some nerves, but it just wasn't anything extraordinary. And then I got up on stage and I had my notes on my phone that I was reading from, and I left the mic stand in front of me, all these just like little minor errors. And, the performance, it was just okay. It's not like I got booed off the stage or anything. I got some laughs, but it went nowhere like how I wanted it to go. And for literally years after, like years, I couldn't think about that night without making an audible sound of disgust. Like I'd just be driving in my car and I would go into work and it'd come into my mind and be like, oh, I just can't even think about it. I knew it was something that it wasn't going to be perfect at right away, but for some reason the discrepancy just between my expectation and the performance was exceptionally embarrassing and humbling. I still haven't even watched the recording, and I plan on getting up to do it again. But I've got having a couple of young kids and working the shift work, it makes it really tough to get out. And I just feel like stand-up is something that you're going to have to grind at for a while, doing it kind of regularly. So when the kids get a bit older, I'll try it again. But that's still, it's waned a little bit. But when I think back, I still kind of make that sound.
Kudos to you for trying it. That's something that I've always been interested in attempting myself. I don't know that I ever will, but yeah, I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan, so I just think that it's awesome that you went up there and did it, because not a lot of people have, so that's great.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people are afraid of it. Maybe I should have been a little more fearful, but yeah, I'm definitely a huge stand-up fan. I'm just curious, kind of who are your main guys? I know we're
main ones. Well, I listen to Tinfoil Hat, so I can't rule out Sam Tripoli. Some other dudes, Ryan Sickler, Tom Segura, Brent Ernst is I've been a fan of his for a while. He was recently on Ryan's podcast. Yeah, so Joey Diaz to an extent. I like his podcasts more than the stand-up.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So those are a few. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always, I guess it's always tough. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but yeah, it's I think Doug Stanhope is probably up there for me. He's
Yes,
definitely
Stanhope.
one of my favorites. I've seen him live a few times, and he's incredibly funny. I still love Louis C.K.
Mhm.
Masturbation
Right.
dalliances aside, I think that I still think he's a phenomenal comic. And his newest stand-up, actually, I thought was his best one in years because he seemed a bit pissed off about how that whole thing went, and he kind of let it out in his comedy. And I think when comedians have a chance to be slighted or angry, they're usually a little bit better, right?
Right. What about Dan Cummins? You've heard of him?
No, I haven't. No,
He's an Idaho boy, so I think you're out near that side of the country. So I don't know if you ran into that name or not.
no, I'll check him out though. Yeah, I'm out in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Closer to Idaho than me. All right. Question number 8. What is your greatest fear? How did you overcome it?
Uh, my greatest fear is just not being there for my girls. I mean, I grew up with a single mom, and I know how hard that was on her, and I know how it felt to feel like my dad didn't want to be a part of my life. So I think that's something that I've worked really hard at, just making sure my girls know and how much I love them, and that I'm going to be there for them no matter what. Um, I'd say I've overcome it by making a concerted effort just to make sure that when I'm with them, I'm as present as possible. And by working hard on my relationship with my wife to make sure that we're on the same page and that we're raising them to feel loved and supported. I think that family is incredibly important for kids growing up. And I think there's a lot of pressures from society as a whole to kind of fracture that and kind of foster dependence on the state. So I think to counter that, it really takes an intentional effort on the family's part. And I think that, that's but one thing that I'm fearful of, the most fearful of, but also a thing that I work really hard to counter.
Yeah, I think that's a noble thing to have in your front of your mind like that, because I don't have any kids, so I can't really speak to that directly, but I can see I have 2 young nieces, and I can see my brother raising them, and it just seems like it's such a scary time to be doing that, having children and raising them nowadays. So I commend you for thinking about that in the way that you do.
Yeah, we don't even let them. I mean, we do a little bit, I guess, but just in terms of being a scary time, it's like we don't let them watch TV. There's no screen time. I mean, we get a half an hour at most of Mr. Rogers kind of once a day, but that's because that man's an angel and it's hard to impugn out of his motives, right? But as far as watching anything else, it's just like there's always something coming up, man. If you see what's happening with the random troll dolls or the LOL dolls or whatever they're called coming out of Australia, that you dip them in water and they go from a normal looking girl to wearing fishnets and handcuffs and stuff. Like there's so much obscenity and stuff, especially even in Disney, right? Disney's supposed to be this wholesome thing, and then look at the way that they treat the kids that come up on Disney. The girls start wholesome when they're young, and then by the time they're 15, they're wearing tiny skirts and acting really kind of sexually promiscuous, and that's just not really a thing that you want in your kid's life. So I mean, it's just I guess all this to say it's certainly front of mind for both my wife and I.
Good. Question 9. What quality do you most admire in a man? Why?
I think that's actually a tough one, because there are a lot of admirable qualities, but I think a man of integrity is the most admirable. Someone who's honest and has a strong moral compass and is driven by those things feels like a pretty rare breed in today's culture. But I think it's something that should be strived toward by every man, and I think it leads to living a good life. But it's easy to say you're a man of integrity until you're put into a position where you have to test that. And I think it's tough to know who a man of integrity is until you see them in a difficult position where they're forced to stick to their values to their own detriment was really the key there, right? If you're not willing to kind of sacrifice something for your values, then how strongly do you hold those? So yeah, I think that's what I hold most high.
Not going to find any argument from me on that one. But yeah, I think it's especially, I mean, that concept becomes more illustrated when a person is faced with overcoming adversity, trying to stick to your beliefs and persevering through whatever the adversity you're faced with is. So yeah, I agree 100%. Question 10. Who were / are your role models and why?
Okay, so I know this is going to sound cheesy, but I heard Matthew McConaughey say this years ago, and it really resonated with me. I think everyone is flawed, and by using others as role models, I think that you really can set yourself up for disappointment. So I like to pick and choose characteristics from people that I admire. I mean, for example, I think Jordan Peterson is a man of great integrity, and I really admire him for that. But I think the only person that you can truly know and the person that you should strive to know the best is yourself. And so my role model is the person that I'm striving to be, and the person I'm striving to be today is my future self, say 5 years from now. And, those goalposts are always pushed further down the road. But I think that's the healthiest way I've found to encourage growth in myself, like not to hold up these false ideals, but to strive toward being something that I know is not only achievable, but relatable. And it's also something that I know intimately, right? I'm not looking at kind of what the presentation of someone's character is. I can reflect and look honestly at where I'm at versus where I want to be. And it gives me a chance to really grow in that direction. And so right now I'm working towards being a more productive, organized version of myself than I was in the past. And, my future self gets shit done without getting mired in the perfectionist trap that leads to procrastination for me, and learns and grows as he produces things of value for himself and his family.
That is a really interesting answer. I like it. I don't think I've ever heard anybody approach that question like that before, but it's really interesting. I think, I think that putting anybody on a pedestal and saying that, this person 100%, whatever they do is my role model. So I think there is a danger in doing that. So I really like that. I just like your approach to the question. I think it's really neat. Question 11. What institution of society or structural aspect of modern life would you change given the chance?
I would end the whole YOLO trend. You only live once. I think that if people understood that their personality would exist beyond death, that we all live multiple existences, and that our personalities that we know are never destroyed, that it would shift the entire focus of our society. The hedonistic nihilism that we're all encouraged to exist in is, I believe, completely self-destructive and pushes us all in the wrong directions. I believe this reality is a training ground to teach us that our beliefs, thoughts, and expectations create reality, that our consciousnesses literally create the reality that we experience, and that if people understood that, it would force a massive shift in how society conducts itself. We'd have much more self-reflection and contemplation, and I think people would act with more intention and understanding towards one another. So I think it would be hard to not have a more kind of beautiful society from that.
Yeah, I think it's great that you mentioned the YOLO thing, because I was actually thinking about that the other day. Like, I have a suspicion that it was some kind of psyop, because you only live once. So, I mean, that automatically kicks out the idea of reincarnation, and it encourages, I just find it interesting that you brought it up, and I was thinking about it. But yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Question 12. What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
So my wife gave birth to our first child at home. She had a water birth with just a couple of midwives and no medication. And I thought that was incredibly courageous. Talk about a wild experience to witness from my end, as someone who really likes to help others. And then talk about a helpless feeling. I was basically a water boy, but it was really inspiring for me to see how she handled the whole experience. I mean, I know she had some apprehensions about how it would go, but she was incredibly brave in how she approached it and handled the pain in the process. And then when she reached down and felt the head coming out, I could see that she was overcome with emotion and kind of felt the reward of the experience. And just to kind of be there to see, to go from that full range, right, from apprehension and fear to kind of joy. It was just a really beautiful thing to witness, the kind of the value of being courageous in those moments.
Question 13. What does it mean to be a man in today's world?
Well, I think in today's world, there's a lot of effort being made to androgynize both genders. But I think it's important to focus on the strengths and kind of uniqueness of both sexes still. I think that's really crucial. And I think to be a man in today's world means today what I think it's always meant. I think being strong, having integrity, being responsible and being dependable for those around you, protecting your family from hardship. I mean, I think strength is incredibly important, both physically and mentally. And maybe that doesn't mean exactly what it meant 5,000 years ago when we were living in tribes and going out and hunting parties. But I still think it's important to be strong physically for the confidence it brings, just to know you have, the ability to protect yourself and your family. Having integrity in today's world feels like a rare attribute, but I think it's integral to being a man and not a child. I mean, today it feels like a lot of people are overwhelmed with choice, and there's just this lack of accountability that comes with that. Plans get broken because something better comes along. But I think a man of integrity is a man of character, and that's something that stands out in today's society and something that you can't really lead without having. I think being responsible, that comes with integrity, but it still needs to be said, right? A man takes care of those around him to the best of his ability and at the sacrifice of himself if need be. I think the selfishness that's encouraged in our society today leads to just this extreme lack of responsibility. But again, it's something that's integral to being a man. And then just finally being a man of your word is something that seems to have gone the way of the dodo, but I really think it needs to have a renaissance.
Yeah, I would agree with you. You mentioned strength in there, and it takes strength to do all those things that you just mentioned. And that's one of the that makes me think of the virtues. Strength, another word for could be like fortitude or courage.
Yeah.
So having those things definitely allows you to better having that allows you to better display the other things that you touched on. So yeah, I love the answer. It's great. And that will take us into the bonus section. First bonus question. What quality do you most admire in a woman?
That's actually a really hard one. There's so much there that's admirable. But I think just their ability to be open and vulnerable when it comes to talking about their own feelings. I don't think that's something that comes particularly easy for most men. At least it didn't for me. And it's something that I really greatly admire in a woman. I mean, for my teenage years, I think I suppressed every feeling that wasn't happy. And instead, I just acted them out without any real awareness of where the stuff was coming from. I used to joke that I only knew happy or hungry, but it was actually just pretty true, right? Being able to see women that have not only the ability to express their feelings, but the knowledge and awareness of what those feelings are is just incredibly admirable. And it's what I think is a great thing.
I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No what? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No what?
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. No why? I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. No why? I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. No why? I don't wanna hold night.
Why?
I don't wanna hold night. No
Why is
why?
there innocent people locked up for life? While some people can't say nothing nice. Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why, and why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why, and why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes? And why, and why, and why, and why, and why, and why?
I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No why? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No why? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No why? I don't wanna hold night. I don't wanna hold night. No why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.